What's going on, investors? Today, I'm going to share with you the multi-million dollar retirement account strategy using real estate that actually catapulted my investing career. Obviously, you can tell once we get done with this, you'll see that this is not the way I went, but this is actually what sparked my interest to get into real estate. So I'll give you a little background. I remember I was sitting there. I was a federal agent at the time, and they had one of those retirement, gurus come in or whatever. He was just a supervisor at our station, but he had $1 million in his TSP account, which is like a secondary retirement account that we had with the government. And he was breaking everything down and going all through all these numbers. And I found out that our retirement, after you did your 25 years, whenever you became eligible, was only 25% of your 3 years of your biggest base salary. They took the average of that, and that was your retirement. And then every year you worked after 25 years, you got a percent. So say you worked 5 years past the 25-year mark, you would get 30% of your retirement. And then he was saying, okay, hey, if you max out your TSP, at the time I think it was like $17,000 or $18,000 a year. He's going through all these things. After 35 years, you'll have $1 million in your TSP. And then I'm taking it one step farther. I'm doing the math, and I'm like, okay, well, if we make low six figures and 30% of that, and then you take $1 million and you divide that up into 30 years, I'm like, you mean living off of like $60,000, $70,000 a year? I'm like, who the fuck wants to work for 30 years for something to have $60,000 a year in income? I'm like, that's ridiculous. I remember watching guys that got mandatory, which means in the government you can't work past 57 unless you're like a veteran. There's a couple of stipulations. They might have moved to now, but when I was in, you could only work till 57. I remember guys would get retired at 57 on a Friday, and Monday they'd have to start a job at like the Ford dealership going to sell cars because that was such a drop off in their income from what they were already making. They weren't set up long enough to be able to withstand their mortgage, car payments, stuff like that, because they pour spending, they poured all this. I'm like, okay, this ain't gonna work. So obviously my mind starts scrolling, and I'm thinking about, okay, hey, this is the strategy that I came up for, and that I thought, okay, hey, I can use real estate to make $1 million, multi-million dollar savings account essentially. So I'm gonna quickly break down through the numbers that I ran. The numbers will be a little different now because I use today's numbers versus what it was back then, which actually looks a lot better now if you look at the numbers, but this is a couple of years ago. So the median home price is $416,000 in 2025 in the United States. So my theory is that I was going to buy three properties. The first one I was going to buy with a low down payment loan, 3.5% down, and I was factoring in another 1.5% for closing costs. So all total out of pocket 5%. That's what I told myself. After a year, I move out, move back to an apartment or wherever I was living before that, rent that house out. Think about it. You maxing out my TSP, which is a retirement account, was $18,000. So obviously, your median home price, the 5% of that 416, is only 21,000. So at that point, you're pretty much that first year, it's like a wash essentially. That what you would have maxed out your TSP, that's what you use the down payment for your house. Every year after that, you're not spending that $18,000 anymore. So what you start doing is you pay one extra mortgage payment to that house, and the rest stays in reserves. And that any profit you have on top of the rental income, it just sits in the same account. And then after 5 years, you buy another one. You do the same thing. You move in for a year, you move back out, you rent it out, and the process just starts over again. But this time in that house, you make two mortgage payments a year extra. If you make one payment a year extra on a 30-year mortgage, you'll pay off that note in 25 years. And I was like, perfect. That's exactly what I want because I want to be retired at 25. Second one, same thing. You're going to make two mortgage payments on it, and that'll drop it down to 20 years. The third property, you put on a 15-year note. So by doing that, remember, I maxing my TSP was $18,000 a year. So you're actually going to have a lot sitting in that reserve account for reserves because people are like, oh, well, you're going to have vacancy, you're going to have repairs. That's what that is. So you still take that same $18,000 that you were maxing out in your TSP and you put it in a high yield savings account. So you're still making, 3.5%, 4% of your money, which is what you're making right now. And then, yes, there are some other factors like the median home prices are supposed to go up, obviously, over time. Yes, I did the typical 3% or 4% appreciation per year. So at year 5, the median home price will be 478. So 5% of that will be 24,000. Very small difference. After 10 years, the median home price will be up to 550. That's 28% or 28,000 at 5%. So again, very minuscule increase. And obviously, your salary is going to keep going up, and so it's a TSP contribution. So those are eventually going to wash out. But this is where it gets interesting, and this is the reason why I did it. Because if you take the annual appreciation of even just 3% of real estate over a course of 25 to 30 years, that house that you bought and is now paid off, all 3 of those houses, because the first one you bought, you made an extra mortgage payment per year, that note's going to get paid off in 25 years. The second one that you bought after year 5, you're going to put 2 payments per year on it, and it's going to pay off in 20 years, which puts you in the same time frame that first one gets paid off on. And the third one that you bought at 10 years, you get it on a 15-year note. So that means at the same time, in 25 years, all 3 of those properties will be paid off. But here's the kicker. If you take, just using the first example, 416 being the median home price today, if you take the typical 3 to 4% appreciation that historically real estate has, that home that you paid 416 for will be worth $1.25 million. And obviously there's a chance that could be way higher. But again, I'm just taking the average of appreciation. So now you have 3 homes, all worth over $1 million, paid off at 25 years. That was the strategy that I came up with. Obviously, I started doing something like that, and then it just, well, hey, why don't I just buy another one? And then obviously now we're 3 years into this with 60 doors, so, but that was the original strategy that I came up with, sitting there on a napkin in that class that I had to take for 4 hours. And that was my plan to get into real estate. And this is a very real, achievable goal that me, just as a federal agent making low 6 figures income, could very well achieve. And a lot of those agents are maxing out their TSP. And they can do exactly what I just did right there, what I told you. And they would have quadruple what they had in that TSP account. And it's in an asset that's more stable, like real estate. And that, I just wanted to share that with you guys because I've never heard anybody else use that strategy. I think I've tried telling my parents and stuff like that, but it's already so long made on in their life that they could start it. And if a lot of people come and ask me, hey, what would I do if I don't want to be a full-time landlord, but I still want to be involved in real estate? Guys, this is what I would do. Because anybody can do this. Because if you're thinking about, if you're maxing out the $18,000 a year, you're going to have a lot of money left over throughout the years to be able to easily cover any repairs, any vacancy for those 3 properties. And you'll even be able to pay a management company that 8 or 10% they use to manage the company. So you're not even touching them. You're going to buy it, live in it for a year, and then your management company, you take it over. Completely hands off. And you will have 3 houses worth over $1 million in 25 years, better than any retirement account or any return on savings account that you have. So that's a little strategy that I came up with on the back of a napkin, and I wanted to share that with y'all.